Hello and welcome back to the I'll Try That podcast. This week, we're heading to Victoria, Australia to try the very famous VB Victoria Bitter. But first, we're going to head to the splendiferous, the spectacular, the superbious, the spiffing Matt Barber.
Oh, wow. Well, we couldn't find him, so I'm going to have to do instead. Gentlemen, tell me something. Does the name Valgeirson mean anything to you?
It doesn't.
And that's the end of the hop topic. Never mind. Join us next week where we'll find out if the guys know another niche brewer. Valgeirson is responsible, it would seem, I sound like being very harsh here, for me, what is one of the more outrageous beer flavours coming out of Iceland. So this is a Christmas themed beer that's been made in Reykjavik. So, I mean, if we were to do a sort of Christmas dinner vibe beer, what sort of flavours would we typically expect to see?
Christmas dinner or some sort of stuffing.
Stuffing.
I think of Christmas dinner. Cranberries, very Christmassy.
Or pigs in blankets.
Gravy.
Yeah, actually, do you know what I would go for? Bread sauce beer.
Oh,
well, I just love bread sauce.
Yeah.
Anyway, so your traditional Christmas.
I could actually see, just on the side tangent, I could see bread sauce beer being quite popular actually, because actually there's quite a few other like bread
toast
related.
We did toast, didn't we?
Toast.
Yeah.
We did toast before. You've got banana bread by I forgot what brewery actually does that, but Waggle.
Well, there's also, in this beer that I'm about to talk about, they have, it features a little bit of cloves, actually, which is normally something you see in the background, but actually I always think makes bread sauce. However, a traditional Christmas dinner in Iceland has, actually is something like smoked lamb leg and potatoes, leg of lamb rather. And this beer, which Valgeirson saw fit to produce, is flavoured with canned peas. I was going to say pea, and I meant to say it's like the little green things, and red cabbage and pea beer.
I mean, I like red cabbage. I'm going to put it out there. As a side.
In your beer, though?
Not in a, yeah.
In pea. I mean, that's going to presumably give you a nice sweetness to...
Are peas that sweet, though? They're not that sweet. It's not like biting into an apple.
No, indeed. I mean, but if you have...
But an element to it. We're not talking about the sweetest. Marvin hasn't said it's the sweetest thing ever. We're on a scale of sweetness, saying it would have an element of sweet to it.
But beers talk about putting sweetness in their beer, and they use very sweet things that make it not that sweet, but a little bit sweet. So I'm just thinking.
But it's an earthy sweet, isn't it? Like peas, as the green and the green family is a sweeter one.
Yeah.
It's going to take a bit of getting used to, I imagine, this beer, right? Valgeir, or Big Val, as those of us who know him, or don't know him, call him. He's got form in this department. He's also had a crack at beer made from seaweed, salty, I imagine, dried fish. And actually, reading this, I can't. I mean, as if that's not weird, as if that was not weird enough. And I'm kind of rubbing my eyes and reading this. And from beer made from the foot of a Christmas tree, apparently. It's not been obviously reported quite as widely as this pea and red cabbage one, but I think the reason for that is the first batch of this pea and red cabbage beer sold out in about 6 hours.
Wow!
Oh, wow. Okay.
So
there's uptake in Iceland. I can't quite see it. I can't quite see Jólabjór being shipped over here, but can you think of anything weirder than that?
Well, it sounds like it's popular, like the novelty of it. Maybe it does actually taste great. I don't know. Have you got a?
I mean, what does it compare it to? Does it?
Do you know what? There's just a few quotes when I was surprised at how good and pleasant it was compared to when you see the peas and red cabbage being poured into the brewer. I was expecting a more pronounced taste of the ingredients from another taster. So maybe it's that they've just managed to get it as a subtle background twang rather than, I'm having a nice cool glass of peas and red cabbage.
So this week we're travelling down under to talk about one of the most iconic Australian beers, Victoria Bitter. The Big Cold.
The Big Cold. Simo? You're in location. It's called the Big Cold. It's VB, or is it known as Victoria Bitter, or is it V? I always thought it was VB.
Okay, so interestingly, it's throughout its career. I'm going to call it a career. It's acquired a lot of nicknames and a lot of abbreviations because Australians love an abbreviation. So, for instance, the fact that everyone calls me Simo is supposedly the most Australian thing you can do. So, VB, also known as Vic Bitter, that's not the Veebs, the very best, Vitamin B, Victory Beer. Now, Victory Beer was because it was very famous for sponsoring the AFL here. And so it used to drink it afterwards as a Victory Beer, VB. And for those that dislike it, also known as Vomit Beer and the Visitor's Beer.
Go for it, Bubs.
Now listen around, fellas. I'm going to tell you the story. I can't do it like this.
No, I wouldn't either.
We'll pretend we got someone in to do this, and then I'll go, hey, wow, that guy was good. Thomas Aitken came to Victoria from Scotland in 1842 at the age of 19. In 1851, he founded the Corio Brewery in Geelong. And later started the Geelong. Thanks, mate. And later started the Union Brewery in Melbourne. By 1854, he was in business at Victoria Parade, East Melbourne, where he had built a new brewery, distillery and malt house. I don't know why I just went into Southern American. The large complex was called the Victoria Parade Brewery, and a substantial business developed.
Fabulous. Well, thank you very much for that.
Victoria.
Thank you for transporting us back.
Hey, that guy was good. We should get him again.
We should, definitely.
Oh, so they're a classic. They were also... So, I mean, it's Victoria Beer. It's Victorian times they started. 1862, they used to keep the horses. We like the breweries that did the horse deliveries. They had 16 transporting the beer. They had cats to defend the brewery from rats.
Nice.
And they think there were about 1,000.
Cats or rats?
That's incredible. Never heard of any that 1,000 cats.
Yeah, they think there were 1,000 cats. So I wasn't sure if it was 1,000 rats or 1,000 cats, but
do you reckon they all had little uniforms on?
I hope so. With little VB bells running around.
Yeah.
Although the bells would have warned the rats that the cats were coming. So maybe, cats are quite stealthy. So
if there were 1,000 cats, how many rats do you think there must have been?
A lot. I reckon.
How many rats does a cat eat a day?
I reckon a cat could.
No, we're going down these maths questions again.
Actually, rats can be big and be feisty.
Yeah.
I mean, I was going to say I think a cat could take on 3 rats, but maybe not at the same time. No.
What? One after another? Yeah, exactly. Is it at the same time? Is it one after another?
Joe. If Colin was there,
Colin would have taken on 1,000 rats by himself.
He would have smashed it up. Yeah.
For those unknown, Colin was Simo's much beloved cat. We all had a big fan of Colin. I don't want to move this on, but I am finding the bottle quite interesting now. Simo, you've got some stuff on the bottle, right?
So it's the stubby, all right, which is...
And the stubby is, what's the stubby's size? It's like, it's a squatter, right? And it's fatter than a normal bottle.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, instead of a tall and thin glass like, like a Corona or a Sol, it's like squished down and it's fat and short, basically. And it's got a like short neck. And supposedly there's actually a method behind the madness, so we say, where it's kind of the short neck means there's less airspace in the top of the bottle, which keeps the beer fresher for longer, which is really interesting. And I think Joe's spoken, that's not a word, has spoken about this in the past, which is the fact that a brown glass actually has quite a lot of, there's like science behind it. The fact that...
opaqueness keeps out the sun rays, doesn't it?
If it's exposed to sunshine and it's like the clear glass, it will develop in a different way or something like that. Is that right?
So those two elements that you just said, the shorter neck and the brown bottle. It's those two things is to combat what Australia Dan would refer to as the two great enemies of beer's taste. Oxidization and microbiological contamination.
Oh, those gits. The supervillains of beer.
Imposing the great crime of beer against us, which VB I know referred to as the light struck flavour, which is like when it's oniony and stale. But some people will probably think that it got that anyway.
with regards to the bottle, they don't just have the classic stubbies. They actually have quite a variety of different like sizes, you'll say. So they have a 750 bottle, which they refer to as the long neck 750, the bomber, the King Brown, or the Tawley.
Oh, this is so Australian. I love it.
They had 500ml cans known as the lunch greens. I don't really get that one, but
the lunch greens.
The lunch greens.
One you have at lunchtime.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
My investigative journalism starting
the stubbies, obviously, which they also called pint or short necks. And then they had the can version, which actually I've got a can version, which they called tinnies, boonies, green cans, or gweens. And then they actually have even smaller. They have 250 millilitres, which they call grenades, twisties, or throwies. And for a limited time only, they had something called the Killer Can, because it was a kilo can. Of 1
kilo?
litre
A 1 litre
in the
can?
Northern Territory.
Jesus. 1 litre can.
As
Have I heard you
VB,
correctly?
we are actually trying to kill people with this stuff.
Yeah.
That was in the Northern Territory.
Yeah.
And
You
that
don't want to
kilo
combine
can.
that 1 litre one with the throwy, do you? There's going to be some killies going on there.
I keep thinking, I've got this
Some mamies.
I've got. So sorry, I'm a bit obsessed with this fact. I've got the 375. What's this? The stubby. The stubby, or
Yeah, I've got the original
rooster,
stubby. Yeah.
Or the short neck.
the rooster, or the big changa,
The short neck. The chimichanga.
To me,
The twist me top off.
It's Australian slang. You can just make it up. For me, it actually looks a little bit like a child's medicine bottle. Yeah. Is this VP or is it Carlton?
Especially the colours.
No, I know what you mean. The old-fashioned child medicine bottles. Yeah, it's because of that brown bottle, the stubby as well. It is actually. Now we think about it, it's over-the-counter medicine, like mouth, throat lozenge stuff. Is these bottles?
That would be a great advert. Hey, have a VB. Get some. They should have called it the medicine.
Well, talking about adverts, this is why I know VB, because I've never tried the beer before. This is the first time I've ever sampled it, or ever had it. But I know it because of the distinctive voice of the voiceover, the commercials. And they've had the big cold one, the big cold beer, sorry, I should say. I keep saying the big cold one. Maybe that's their new pitch. But the big cold beer has been their ad campaign and running campaign for forever, right? Since the 70s. And for all of these campaigns, they were voiced by John Mellon, late John Mellon, who you might know as Walter Riley in Crocodile Dundee. He's Crocodile Dundee's like side. Yeah, Big Wally, that's it.
And in number 2, by the way, just shout out to Crocodile
of course, he had to make a repeat.
We don't talk about the latter Crocodile Dundee.
So although he did pass it in 1987, his family gave permission for VB to continue using his voice. So that's why you still have this intrinsic link between his voice and the big cold beer.
I called him Big Wally. He wasn't Big Wally because the big one was Donk. In Crocodile Dundee.
That's right. He was the guy. He was set up. He was the light relief, wasn't he? Yeah. Really light relief on it. It was really nice. I liked him as a character.
Anyway, right. So interestingly, with that advertising campaign, thinking about that kind of thing, is the music that they play. So they use the theme from The Magnificent Seven.
Oh, really?
That's the theme tune they use.
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
That's the theme tune they used, and their slogan, which John Mellon used, was for hard-earned thirst, and they actually began kind of a bit like, we're looking at the Leeds bitters, and like John Smith's and stuff. It was focused on like hard-working.
I was going to say this. I just had a look at. I was on YouTube and I saw some absolutely magnificent commercials for VB, which I'm probably going to get my dates wrong, but they look they're very 80s. There's a lot of man with an enormous moustache helping someone drive their ute out of a ditch, and the idea is it's so hot. There's lots of real hard, intense. Manual labour work and exertion going on, and this beer for me is for I maybe an archaic phrase, but for the real men out there who've really worked up a sweat, like the sport, and then just want to knock one back at the end of the day. That's ultimately refreshing.
Well, that's it, and like this goes back to the why this beer in 1854 was created, was to be full flavoured, full strength, and thirst quenching beer for the harsh Australian climate. I mean, it just sounds like a men's beer. So but also it's set for a real purpose of back there, going back to your point, Barbara, about ice. Ice is not that easy to come by in all areas of the world. Australia, not so much. Ice doesn't naturally form in Australia. So, this is...
We had to pay extra for the meteorology assessment.
we had to do our own research on this,
Yeah. We were looking at that for weeks. Australia, not so icy.
Interestingly as well, with regards to how big they are as a company, I just in 2004, I know that's quite a while ago, but it's just something that I find interesting is they held 25% of the market share of beers sold. So that means
in Australia,
1 in 4 Australians,
right.
Yeah, so 1 in 4 Australians bought it to drink it. Now, interestingly, and I would like to hear your views on this because I think it's quite. I don't know if it's as controversial as I think it is, but essentially, the brewer, the company that brewed this, kept cutting the alcohol percentage from its original 4.9. Now, it is now 4.9 again. In Australia, anyway. I'm not sure if it is.
I think I'm 4.7.
I'm 4.9.
Sorry, no, 4.9. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. So basically, it's always been 4.9, and in 2007, they started cutting down the percentage in order to save millions of dollars in tax payments, and so they kept cutting it from 4.9 all the way down to 4.6. Until tons of people started complaining.
Well, I've been reading a lot of online forums about reviews of this because of trying to form an opinion, obviously not being a native Australian and being immersed in it. And a lot of people complaining of this watering down of the beer.
Yeah. So do you think, if you had a beloved drink, right, and you were told that it was getting weaker, how would you... I'd be interested in, what would your thoughts be on it?
Well, I mean, you do think as well, 4.9 down to 4.6 is not that big a difference. It's only 0.3% ABV, and you can't really taste that difference. But if this is something that's so quintessential, or I guess it's so at the foundations of why you drink this beer, that it's full flavour, full strength, and think about the kind of characters as well. You said 25% of the Australian population drink that. But obviously you can probably create a picture, a persona of who those 25% are. They're not going to be interested in the fact that this is now 0.3% less. And even if it wasn't more watered down, it didn't have more water in it, in that flavour profile, and it was still a true flavour to what that 4.9 was, they're going to perceive that it's got more water in because that's just how the consumer brain works.
I would maybe add to that. I think it's a little bit... difficult because ultimately, when you buy beer, you have live beers and you have, effectively then sort of dead beers. And I assume that this is a technically a dead beer. But Joe's made a couple of points in a few podcasts previously that actually to get something to taste the same across the globe and over a set period of time is actually a real feat of ingenuity and technology and that sort of thing. However, I also would kind of be open to the idea, if I thought this was the reason, that actually because of meteorological conditions and harvests and that sort of thing, and the ability for people to get hold of certain types of hops and yeast and all that sort of thing, that in my mind I would totally be open to the fact that beers can and do change. However, I would sort of maybe be a bit more on board with that being the reason than rather they went, we're going to take the beer in a different direction and sort of maybe shoehorn it into a certain...
and by the sound of things, to save money on tax.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not really a good form. But consumers aren't going to be with you that, please, big corporation, please save some money on tax.
Because the perception will be that the massive brewery is probably doing okay, and I might be doing them an injustice there, but that's probably that's what people think.
I think that's exactly it. And all these perceptions are probably exactly what the people were feeling in Australia. So I want to talk about how the recipe hasn't really changed too much. So it kind of is tied into that 4.9 down to 4.6, but the recipe itself is still using Australian pale malt and what they refer to as the iconic Pride of Ringwood hops.
Ringwood?
So hops that are grown in Victoria and Tasmania. Now, the Ringwood name, obviously, we know here in the UK of being, quite famous beer-related, Ringwood Brewery, Ringwood things. So I've never heard of these Ringwood hops before, but I do wonder if this is hops that have maybe found their way over from the UK, but are now very clearly grown in Victoria and Tasmania in Australia.
Okay, so have you guys seen the VB store
I've not seen the VB.
Now,
I haven't.
So it is absolutely fantastic. I actually own a bucket hat.
You own a bucket hat. That's really not that miraculous. Somehow else to say.
So basically, this was an absolute bargain.
I just heard like 40,000 women swoon.
Oh, of course, look an absolute gem. So basically, they have a huge clothing brand, and they do loads of like really. This is the most dull thing they've got on their website, but they have super vibrant, like green and red, like shorts, budgie smugglers, towels, like bikinis, all that have like VB all over it. They also do Converse style shoes, the bucket hats that I'm fashioning now. They also do Webbers. They also do cool boxes.
What are Webbers? What are Webbers?
Sorry, Webbers are barbecues.
Oh, no.
Barbecues. They do cool barbecues. They do cool boxes, fridges, neon lights, snacks, and a snowboard.
Okay, so they do anything that could have a VB plastered on it. They've done it.
Just why not?
Love it.
In Australia, you can actually ski.
Taz, did you say? Tassie, sorry, Taz.
Well, no, I think it's
that's where the devil's from.
Oh God, my jig. Anyway, yeah, but essentially, it's an absolutely wacky, amazing store, and you can buy some really cool, like funny kind of. It's for me, it kind of sums up Australia a little bit, like willing to take the piss out of themselves a little bit, willing to do really outrageous colours, and it's just really fun, and it's like, yeah, I really like it. So I thought I'd just share that with you. So if if anyone wants a VB thing, go online.
So thinking about VB, I was thinking, well, VB, Victoria Bitters is the only thing I know of, but there is actually a Melbourne bitter as well, an MB. Have you heard about this before?
So presumably a big rival.
Yeah, well, it must be. But they're owned by the same company, which is the Carlton United Breweries, which we're just segueing into.
Off the rivalry a bit.
Just a bit.
Which is on all your bottles, by the way, boys. On your stubbies, you'll see a CUB logo.
Oh, embossed on the bottle.
Yeah, what do you call that, Joe? It's not.
It is embossed because it comes out of the bottle.
Sorry, Bob.
It's debossed when it goes into the bottle.
You just didn't trust me there, did he?
No, I didn't hear you. I didn't hear you. Oh, sorry.
Oh, it's okay. It's fine. Can we still be friends? To cut you off, because I thought that was going to be, because it was mentioned earlier about Mr. Aitken, that he started the Corio Brewery, and then there was the Union Brewery, but that doesn't stand for Corio and Union, does it?
No, it's Carlton United Breweries is what it stands for, which is the parent company for Victoria Bitters.
When I meant to say Union.
We knew what you meant.
It's actually a subsidiary of Asahi.
The plot thickens.
Yes, which I did notice that, which they've got a lot of Asahi products. They also have the distribution rights to Corona in Australia as well.
Brewing industry is just incestuous, isn't it? There's all sorts of overlaps going on.
Or as we like to say, Barber, more, it's built on relationships.
Incest is a crime, isn't it? You stand accused of incest. No, we've just built a relationship.
Boys, what is Australia famous for? Oh no, actually, before we do this, I really want. Can everyone look at the lid of their can? Everyone has. So your can. Oh my God, English. Your bottle lid. I'm getting there. Has a saying. Mine says Aussie Alan Walsh invented the atomic absorption spectrophotometer, and then all it says after that is champ, which I think is fantastic. So, nice, interesting fact. Joe,
okay,
drinking beer and you're learning.
I have on the inside of my bottle cap, Aussie Nathan Griggs cracked 2 whips a record 697 times in 1 minute.
What? That's actually incredible. That's so sick.
Whoa! So he's like.
But I love that we are going, this is amazing how many times he cracked that whip, whereas the one before that you just read out, even though you couldn't pronounce the word, probably did something very significant for humanity, whereas this guy's cracking whips. And we're like, whoa, whips!
But what's important is Alan Walsh was a champ, because it says so on the lid. So.
Oh, like that, yeah. This bloke went to the moon. It's like, you see what this fella's done with his whips? Like, get a life, mate.
So I know we kind of danced around it a little bit, but the taste of this is interesting. I've never had when I twisted open the cap, because it's a twist top. put my nose to it, I was quite appalled by what was greeting me in my nostrils and my senses.
Your face was very repugnant of whatever you were smelling. Yeah.
It's a combination of something like a kind of vacuous, like kind of staleness and Marmite/Vegemite as well. It's not a pleasant smell.
Nailing them stereotypes, putting the Vegemite.
It's not. It's very yeasty. Is all I'm getting to, because it is a very yeasty product. This is bitter after all, and if it does follow the bitter of of England, then it's going to have a lot of maltiness, and it's going to have.
Well, so I would say it's almost a load of cobblers about it being bitter. It's more like a lager, isn't it?
Well, that's it.
Or is that just
a
me?
few sips in, it very clearly was not a bitter in that sense. But have you got some?
Yeah, it's not like a Sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, for me, it's so much heavier. Like it's a slower drink. Like, as in, I feel like you feel heavy. I feel heavy, when I drink it, and I don't feel the same way as if I was drinking like a Sapporo or an Asahi, or it's not a lager like that sort of style. It's almost like it reminds me a little bit of Tiger beer, where it's like a bit heavier, and it's like I wouldn't be able to drink this as quickly as I would be able to drink like a light lager or a Sol that we've had in the past at all.
Yeah. I'm quite suggestible. So also, when you guys talk about it, I go, yeah, I agree. But I really, really want to like it.
I do like it,
and I think I do. But I think it's because I want to a little bit. This is definitely what a beer. Relatives of mine of an older generation would say that's dishwater.
Yeah.
I'm projecting a little bit. It's a bit full on. It's a little bit like a beer that someone else drank last week.
Oh my gosh. That is literally the most insulting. I feel like that is the most insulting thing you could possibly say.
That was a bit heavy-handed, wasn't it? But that said, I don't know. I feel very at home. I feel like I want to like it, and I think therefore I do. I don't know.
So I was scouring the internet for more research on this, more opinions on this, because I thought, well, my opinion and my view of how it smelled was so abhorrent, and the taste has got better the more I've drunk of it, but that's just beer in general, isn't it? Or anything, alcoholic in general, the more you drink of it, the more you're going to lose the taste of it. So I was thinking, well, no, I'll give Victoria Bitters and VB the benefit of the doubt. Let's go online. Let's go and see what other people are saying about it. People who are more trusted, who have been around, and who are actually Australian, who've grown up with this.
Where's the reviews from, Joe? Where's the reviews from?
So I've sourced these from a number of different review sites. So,
Simo, if you think I went hard, if we're going into the dark side,
I'm going to try and create a big picture with the
one thing I will say before Joe goes into this. I actually genuinely like this, but I feel like maybe I'm becoming more Australian, and so maybe it's the sun has affected me.
I have 3 reviews here for you, and I think I'm going to capture maybe the 25% versus the rest of Australia in this one. Okay, so the first one. Undrinkable cat whiz. This stuff really is terrible. That's it. I've got one here as well. Beer snobs. Yes, unfortunately, 3/4 of the people who write reviews wake up. Not all people, not all. Basically, his point is not all beer drinkers are beer connoisseurs, and VB is a hard-working beer that doesn't appeal to the beer snobs, and VB does the job.
Okay.
There's
an element of that. It's a hard-working beer.
Admirable assessment, I think.
And then the last one I'll give you, I'll read between. I'll cut a bit of this. I'm chop and change, but don't anything else but this. Embarrassment both for the generic beer taste and drunken idiot fan club. So this is why I wanted to read this. But this whole I wanted. Yeah. If you see a drunken 20-something wearing an Australian flag like a cape, standing on a 90s era Holden Commodore, you can safely bet that bottle in his hand is a VB. Anything including water is a better choice than this. Cultural cringe at its absolute finest.
So by the way, a Holden is like
it's Vauxhall.
Oh, what? Yeah, it's Vauxhall.
It's like a muscle
it's
car, isn't it?
It's Vauxhall. It's Vauxhall. So
yeah, but Holden in Australia is more tuned stuff. So isn't it Ford and Holden?
Holden is basic. Holden doesn't really exist anymore. So Holden went out.
No, but the truck races, Holden versus Ford, was really famous, muscle car, racing Australian racing car.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
series.
But I'm driving a Holden at the moment. And it's basically a Vauxhall Corsa. So, but yeah. But one thing I'll say is the people I've spoken to. So Toby, shout out, hockey extraordinaire. He said it's like Marmite. You either love it or you absolutely hate it. And he said, and then I actually spoke to his dad, and he told me, he was like, back in the day, there were 4 beers. Like, he goes, there were 4 beers to choose from, and they were all session beers, and this was the strongest one. And he goes, and that's all the choice you had. It was like super light lager or Victoria bitter. Yeah. And he goes, so nowadays, he goes, you walk into a store and it's like bloody ridiculous. He goes, you only had 4 beers, and now you have all these choices. So he says, like, sometimes people get carried away with the fact that it doesn't taste like these craft beers and people don't like it because of that. But it was never a craft beer. So that's what I find.
Well, the geography's got to play a huge part, hasn't it? So you're not going to get your, like your Belgian, your lefts and your smaller quantity, high percentage, taste really strong taste profile and very bold, shall we say. It's a beer for a location, I think, and I'd also describe it as for me, I think it's a grower rather than a shower.
I completely agree. I think this is what you get with an older brewery that's been around for a while, but it was one of the earlier ones. Now, I have just given you guys a center link on Instagram because I think you're right. This is not a craft beer. This is not something that's trying to play in this craft beer new age. Here's a neighbor. But this is something that is a photo I just sent you guys on their Instagram. And I think this summarizes what the VB, kind of persona is. Simo, can you describe it for the listeners?
So I want to tell you now, this is not as irregular occurrence as people think it might be.
Can you explain to listeners what you're seeing on screen right now?
So I am seeing... Okay, so Barbs, just wait for it because I'll tell you. This is a fantastic experience of a lovely gentleman with a very styled beard, a shaved... so basically, he's gone to the barber. Okay. So no, he shaved his sides and he's kept his top bit long into a mullet to the degree that it looks a bit like a skunk.
It's one of the best looking mullets I've ever seen. I mean, in like the most impressive mullets, I'd say.
Yeah, but as in, I would say what's amazing is that mullets are still really popular here. So a lot of the biggest rugby AFL stars have mullets.
Mm-hmm.
I play with a hockey guy who every time he goes to the barber gets a mullet. And it's just a thing that happens here. I don't know why. I have no understanding of why it's popular because it looks hilarious. I just don't get it. But mullets are just so popular. And
I am starting to really associate mullets with Australians. Like that. Yeah, that's how it's kind of linked
is.
Now.
It's a big thing now. Like, because it's actually probably 1 in 10. Like, love a mullet. However, every single time I talk about it, everyone's like, it's bloody ridiculous. But then you walk past and there's just a dude with a mullet.
I would have to say as well, something that I'm capturing from the VB's Instagram page is their love of budgie smugglers, so Speedos. There's a lot of branded swimwear, both for men and women, across their Instagram right now. I think it goes back to your point about the store. There's also a guy in a the best bright green neon VB velvet tracksuit and matching cap. So I have to say, guys, if I'm honest, these guys are not taking themselves too seriously. They are doing the branding right in that this is a beer that's been around for a very long time. As to your friend's dad's point, it's one of the 4 that has been around. But so the beer's not going to change. The beer is what the beer is. But why you like VB is for the fact that the beer is going to be the same as you always want to have it, and the fact that the marketing it's a cult classic. It's got such a love affair in the Australia and in the rest of the world. I mean, I like VB for the brand. This is the first time I've ever tried the beer, and I'm thinking, oh, okay, the beer's no. If you're comparing it to like a craft Napier DDH pale ale, but gosh, for something that's like got this cult following, I understand why VB has got such a is so popular. 25% of the population.
It's just so Australian. Like the way they sell themselves is just so brilliantly Australian, and I think it's ingrained. Like everyone, if you talk to anyone, everyone's like for instance, every Australian I've talked about, I was like, "Oh, what's a classic beer?" And they go, "Foster's." Like they always say that, like because they're like, they're like, seriously, VB, mate, just get a VB. And it's like,
So you say that they are joining in with the 21st century. Have you heard about the solar energy exchange?
Tell us.
For those with, I think there's a domestic energy provider in Australia, but basically, for every $30 of solar energy you give to VB, I think basically you must just put it back into the grid. Basically, they'll give you a slab of beer. A slab. Take me
slab of beer.
They call it a slab.
Using the colloquial.
And that's what? How many beers is a slab?
A slab is 24.
Oh, it's a 24 pack.
It's like brilliant. Yeah, you just sign up. If you've got a solar energy, you've got solar panels. You put your stuff back into the grid, and they'll give you beer.
So basically, just to give clarification on the whole solar thing, in Australia, they go to everyone's house and go, "Do you want solar power?" Because what we'll do for you, and which is amazing, is they say for all the unused solar power you use, we'll take it off your bill. So basically, what they're saying is, you got tons of sunlight. You basically people who have solar panels get free electricity. It's like ridiculous.
It's just the whole world should be. I'm sorry, I'm getting all political now. The whole world should have solar panels. Like the sun's just there. Let's just use it. Why would anyone? There's people building buildings and not putting solar panels on them. Idiots. Sorry, I've taken it to a political place.
But anyway, I love a VB. Personally.
So on Instagram, they have 41k followers, and Twitter, they've got 2k followers. So yeah, I think it's important to note that it's one of the original Australian beers. It's got a huge cult following, not just in Australia but outside as well. Definitely worth a follow on Instagram for just their Instagram game is on point. It's on point. It's so good.
I love that. Yeah. The Instagram game on point.
It is. Yeah. It's awesome. It's Fleck.
It's Fleck.
And that's all we have time for this week's episode of the I'll Try That podcast. And so from me, Joe, Rich,
Barber,
and Simo,
goodbye. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Twitter,
I'll try that podcast.com,
and watch us on YouTube.
Goodbye now.